A little earlier in my candidate speech, I spoke about the reformation and reorganization of Sealaska Corporation. And in two major areas we did this. In Sealaska Government Services, we pulled all the businesses in that unit together, and we flattened it out to where we have just one overall board that meets and provides the governance. We've recently done that same thing in our natural resources by taking Sealaska Timber Corporation, which is actually now Sealaska Timber Company, LLC, and Alaska Coastal Aggregates, and the rest of our NR division, and put that into Ha'ani, LLC. It's a holding company for our natural resource and timber. One of the things I also showed you earlier, this graphic, and we're going to talk about that a little bit right now, and kind of the vision we have. We have a panel here for you. We have Gary Mills, there's a land technician, and we have Brian Kleinheinz, our natural resource manager, and we have Elena Peterson from Ha'ani to speak with you. And then to moderate, we have Anthony Malott, our CEO. And one of the things I want to tell you about Anthony is this graphic, the one on the front and the one that was up there just a minute ago, is actually was sketched out on Anthony's desk by hand. He and I talked about it a bit, and we were saying, you know, people think that we clear cut all of our land, and they look around and they say, Sealaska clear cuts everything. We don't. We actually have most of our timber is still standing, and we have kind of a new look at things. And the way the board wants to look at it is we want to look not necessarily the way they did things in the past 40 years, but for the next 40 years and beyond, we want to do things on a sustainable basis. And we all have that commitment that our grandchildren and our grandchildren's grandchildren will enjoy salmon in our streams and bears and deer in our forests, and things will continue that way for a long, long time. So Anthony's going to moderate, and I just wanted to let you know we have a little different vision for the long term. Some of the things they'll talk about are on the back of that form. One of the most important, I think, is our silviculture. When you get out in our lands, we have spent a considerable amount of money over a considerable number of years to do silviculture, which Brian and others can talk about here, that I believe has given us a long-term competitive advantage. We're so far ahead in it now, I don't see how any of the other forests could really compete with ours in the second growth category. So with that, I'll let Anthony take over and moderate this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for that introduction. You know, on the sheet that Richard mentioned to you, a description of how we manage our lands, and we call it balanced land management. And we all know in our culture, balance has a very specific meaning. You know, wuchiach is one of the cultural values we follow. So having balance is very meaningful to us. And we believe we're going to continue giving you information about how we believe the land management strategies we utilize are balanced. And I'm excited to have this group of folks that work in our natural resource Ha'ani division and just give you a sense of their roles and how they fit into this balanced structure. So just to kick them off, I'd just like to have them have an opportunity to introduce themselves, where they're from, and their current role, and then we'll get into some questions, starting with Elena.
Thank you. My name's Elena Peterson. I grew up in Sitka, Alaska, and that's where I live today with my family, and I work for Ha'ani as the program director, and I also work in collaboration with the Sustainable Southeast Partnership.
Hello, my name is Brian Kleinhentz. I'm the corporate forester and natural resources manager. I've been working for Sealaska since 2002, had the honor of starting my career with Sealaska here in Ketchikan. Grew up in Ohio, and it's just a great honor for me to have the opportunity to work on Sealaska land.
Good afternoon. I'm Gary Mills. I've been working with Sealaska since 2014. I started out as a subcontractor and got hired on as a full-time employee in 2015. And I am a forest technician. I run the silviculture program for the Natural Resources Department.
Thank you for that introduction. I'll give a little bit more of the framework that Richard was talking about. You know, there was a necessity for us to integrate this team. You know, Sealaska Timber has been operating for close to 40 years. Before we got our final land entitlement, we were close to shutting down that operation because of lack of the timber base to keep it sustainable. With the lands bill, we believe we can create the sustainable program that Richard talked about. It's a much smaller harvest, though, than what Sealaska has done in the past and what the region has seen, with the other landowners also not being able to put up as much wood as they used to. You know, we're planning a 15 to 20-year time period where we are harvesting about 40 million board feet a year. Historically, we are harvested over 100, so it's about a 60% decline. With that smaller harvest, it's absolutely, again, necessary that our team is working together both for efficiency but effectiveness. And one of the real reasons to call this team Ha'ani, just in general it makes sense because Ha'ani, our land, that should be the name of the people that work from our land base. But as well, Ha'ani started as an economic development unit, and we have Elena that will speak to that. Their whole entire focus was community collaboration and economic development for our rural areas that were struggling and still are struggling with high energy costs, high transportation costs, any number of other issues. There was a real community focus from that economic development team. Having the entire entity, Ha'ani, now the entire natural resource team, the land managers, the timber operators, sand and gravel operators, they have that same community focus and they have that same exact collaboration focus. It's starting internally by working together. They're showing that they can collaborate, and they're showing their partners that with that collaboration, they're doing more with less, and that's what we're seeing across Southeast. There's a necessity that not only do we work internally in a very coordinated fashion, but that we work with our external partners in that same coordinated fashion to face some of the difficulties our communities are facing, whether it be jobs, resource access, any number of issues that have been talked about today. Those are important to us, and we need to work with our business partners, our contractors. We need to work with our tribal partners. We need to work with our landowner partners, the Forest Service, the state, and the other agencies. And we need to work with our community partners. And we've dedicated ourselves to that. This team will talk a bit about how they collaborate and what we mean by collaboration, but they'll also give a sense of how this isn't exactly new. This isn't that big a change in terms of some of the focuses you see on the sheet. On the back side of the sheet, from the diagram, you see a whole description of our land stewardship, which has been going on since the very beginning of Sealaska Timber and is led by Brian Kleinhens. And I'd like him just to talk about the dedication Sealaska has had to strong land stewardship, strong science-based land stewardship that improves the health of our forest and makes sure we have limited long-term effect on the natural habitat. So Brian, can you just speak to your role as natural resource manager, the team you have, and in general, what everybody in this room is seeing on the back of that balanced land management sheet?
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to talk about this a little bit because we're very proud of what we do on the land in terms of our stewardship and our care for the land. The land that Sealaska owns and that you as tribal member shareholder owns, it's a really unique asset. It's a very special place. Just the forests and the waters, the islands and the coastline are very unique, and it makes me proud to think that all 22,000 shareholders, whether they live here in Southeast Alaska or in Seattle, can be part of that. So we take this commitment very seriously, and we're guided by some very simple principles in our land stewardship effort. These are things that are guided by traditional knowledge and traditional values, but can be summed up in really three concepts. We work hard on sustainability. We work hard on science-based, science-led management. And we manage for true multiple use on Sealaska lands. So what that means is that, although we manage and harvest and sell timber, we also manage and harvest deer, blueberries, cedar bark, and we take this all into consideration carefully when we plan our land management efforts. We do this because it's important to shareholders to have the opportunity to hunt and take deer, to collect berries, to perform subsistence, protect fish habitat. And the tools that we use, because we live in a modern world, are science-based tools. That's the translation that we can have to agencies to prove that we're good land stewards. So we have fish science that stretched back now almost 25 years. We have ongoing research on how to grow cedar. We have collaborations and partnerships that have really powerful scientific outputs. We've learned to speak this language of science so that we can bolster our ability to uphold our traditional values. Sustainability is a really big deal, and Anthony spoke to this a little bit in terms of our sustainable harvest, but in a more broad sense, sustainability also means just the opportunity to derive prosperity from the land. And one of the exciting things that we've been able to do is now that we can show a long-term commitment to activity, we've been able to bring younger people into profession, like Gary here, who's worked for us for the past 2 years. And I'd like Gary to tell you a little bit about what he does in a typical day, because I think you'll find it interesting, and I hope that more of our young people, more young shareholders will be interested in doing things similar to what Gary does.
You have to bear with me, I'm a little nervous here, not much of a public speaker, but so I work on the natural resources team running the silviculture program that involves tree planting, tree pruning, pre-commercial thinning units. There's a lot of work that goes into these plans, a lot of groundwork, do a lot of unit recon, we do a lot of unit layout, once the contractors finish doing the job that they're hired to do, we go in and we inspect their work, make sure it's up to Sealaska standards, make sure it's what we're looking for, and it involves a lot of hiking, a lot of groundwork. I've also been working with STC a little bit, doing some timber cruising, some road engineering for our timber harvest units. And I could sit here all day and name off all the little jobs I do for Sealaska, but that's about the gist of it.
Gary's an avid hunter as well. He finds all the best places.
Thank you, Brian and Gary. And Gary mentioned before coming up on stage that he talks more to the trees than he does to people. So he was nervous, but we thank him because I think he did a great job. Thanks, Gary. So, one of the reasons we have Gary up here is, one, just to see the breadth of opportunities in natural resource management, but there's, as indicated on the sheet, there's many opportunities within natural resources, all the way from accounting to being in the forest like Gary, to professional jobs, road engineering, stream survey studies, silviculture, any number of positions. And we know that this 15 to 20 year period that we're talking about with the other landowners, that we need to bridge to a second growth harvest, which is the true harvest that we're going to be able to sustain for many generations. We need a local workforce. Sealaska has this balanced approach to its land management. It's not just about the financials. I mentioned it's also about the communities, and jobs in our community are important. We believe that with the other landowners, we can create an industry that has 400 to 600 direct jobs in the natural resource industry in Southeast Alaska. There's many other jobs, indirect jobs, that come from that industry. And we work with partners because the state and the Forest Service and the communities also have those same goals. They want a local workforce, and we work with them, and we're picking up new strategies, we're picking up new partnerships, and we're combining our resources. So I'd like Elena to speak about a project she just did that took state resources, Forest Service resources, our resources, and also outside groups like the Nature Conservancy to stand up a training for folks on Prince of Wales to get into the natural resource field, and also how we want to expand those programs and make sure, again, that over the next 15 to 20 years, we build a true local workforce that can help move into second growth. So, Elena?
Sure, thank you. So there is this shift to move from old growth logging to second growth or younger tree logging. But in order to do that, there's been a lot of efforts from the state, the local, the federal level to understand better what those stands are of the second growth logs. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done to survey the land, just to understand really how many trees of what different ages there are. And so with this push to understand what's making up the forest, there's a desire to have that work be done by a local workforce. And so it's pretty clear to a lot of folks around the region that that local workforce doesn't really exist in the numbers that are needed here in Southeast. And so I've been fortunate enough to work with, within the Sustainable Southeast Partnership and with different organizations that we're collaborating with to figure out ways to grow that local workforce so that we're not going out to other states and other regions to bring in folks that can do that work. So there's been a need for this local training, and there was a shared vision among many of the partners that Anthony just listed, including the U.S. Forest Service, the State of Alaska Division of Forestry, Sealaska, the Nature Conservancy, a lot of local organizations in different communities, but specifically in Prince of Wales. And through some funding that the state had allocated to do the survey assessments around Prince of Wales, Hani was able to collaborate with these different entities and put on a 2-week training on Prince of Wales back in April. And this was training needed to get into an entry-level tech forester position, I think something similar to what Gary does. And we got 8 people on Prince of Wales through that training. They were all really happy and excited to go through it. A lot of the comments that we received from them was around how happy they felt that they were able to learn more about the land that they live in and the home that they live in, and be the people on the ground doing this work, because who better to learn about the land than the people that live here. And so this training ended, and all 8 folks were able to get jobs right after the training. And so we're looking at replicating this pilot program and doing some more of these trainings and additional trainings, because there's going to be a lot more that's needed. This was just a first pilot program, and Hani's doing another 3-day workshop on Prince of Wales, focused on entrepreneurship and small business planning. It'll be entry level for anyone that has an idea or is in early stages of their business and is needing support or resources. And so that'll happen on Prince of Wales in Klawock. And so we're excited about these programs because we do know there's a need out there to help support workforce development, create jobs and all that. And so these are 2 programs that we're pretty proud of.
Thank you, Elena. And just again to speak to how the economic development team brings a lot to our natural resource efforts. Director Reinhardt mentioned that when the board and management thinks about Ha'ani, it's not just the 360,000 acres we own, it's all of the land base of Southeast Alaska that are the traditional homelands of the Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian. And our land base right now is centered around Prince of Wales, so we do need a lot of focus there, a lot of work with the communities. But the economic development team allows us to be more broad across Southeast than just where our lands are. So they're going to be working with communities across Southeast. And they, again, bring that expertise and community collaboration. And they also bring an ability to look at our land base more broadly than just a timber harvest. So they've led efforts for communities to pick blueberries from the land and pick spruce tips from the land to see if we can create local harvests that, again, bring that same sense of community effort, positive community benefit, whether it be jobs or the extra dollars in shoulder seasons that you can get from picking blueberries or spruce tips. So the team really fits well into everything we're doing at Ha'ani and the natural resource efforts. I want to recognize another team member of Ha'ani, and that's Bill Bennett, who runs our Alaska Coastal Aggregates, our sand and gravel. He lives on Prince of Wales. He works across Southeast Alaska with all our communities, but he is hitting a milestone. He's hitting 20 years with Sealaska this next month, and I wanted to recognize him for his service. Thank you, Bill. Bill manages the carving blank program that we have. So all the wood out there, all the carving blanks and the paddles that we were able to give out, Bill dedicates personal time to this. He is very committed to this program. This provides carving blanks to young students across Southeast that are able to learn carving from traditional carvers, learn the arts, do paddle workshops from, again, Heidelberg all the way to Yakutat. He dedicates his time, and he's actually even gone on 2 canoe journeys now, and I know this program is meaningful to him, and I know the program is meaningful to our youth and everybody that was able to grab a carving blank today. And again, it's just one small effort we take to make sure that it's just not about timber. Again, it's about the community, it's about the cultural use of our land, and it is about financials. We work hard on that, but the whole team has a broader view of our land management, and we're going to carry that forward. And I thank the panel for being up here today, and thank you for listening. Gunak Cheesh.